Hi there, thanks everyone for joining us today. Just waiting for a couple more people, so we'll just hang on for another couple of minutes if that's okay, and start just after 1 if that's right. Okay, so we'll get started in a second. Hopefully you can see our screen okay, and hear everything okay. On the right hand side you've got a chat and a questions box. Perhaps you just pop in the questions box or the chat box just so you can hear everything and see everything okay. That's okay, please. Cool, so all seems okay, so I think we'll make a start. That's right. So yeah, thanks for joining us for our webinar. This is just about Xero software. We're lucky enough to have a couple of guys from Xero helping us out today. We've got Joe and Leigh who'll be doing a bit of a demo later. So we'll have 5 or so minutes just going over the product. We'll have 10 or 15 minutes for them with Joe and Leigh just giving a quick demo, asking any questions at the end, so again 10 or 15 minutes. And then any questions after that, if you just want to follow up with us, by giving us a call or dropping an email. So firstly, just a little update from our previous webinar. That was back in June. So quite a lot's happened since June. This was pre-general election, pre-coalition, all that kind of thing. So quite a bit happened in terms of making tax digital. So what has happened, the big change is the pushback. Originally scheduled for 5th of April 18 onwards for all businesses with a turnover £10,000 or more. It's now been pushed back to 5th of April 2019 and for VAT only, so all other businesses at the minute are not applicable. Any businesses at the minute, so they won't have to update HMRC for any of the taxes until at least 5th of April 2020, and so the upside of that is that they're not going to have to update HMRC anymore until 2020, any more than they do at the minute. So it's quite a lot of breathing space for clients and for businesses. It's not rushed out to give them time to plan a bit more effectively. So current issues with bookkeeping, what we find is that it's quite time consuming. We speak to lots of clients about how they keep their records. Quite a regular theme is it's a weekend job, it's an evening job, so they're working 5 or 6 days a week, coming home 2 or 3 hours then to write up their books. It takes a lot of time, and we've got a lot of clients where they say it's, certainly in the past, their Saturday job is writing books, sending invoices. Yeah, it takes quite a lot of their time. Obviously, a lot of clients use spreadsheets to do it, really open to errors, so sort of transposition errors, lines being missed. Again, all of it with the information they're looking at, it's really not a great deal of use to them. Again, big opportunity for things to be missed. What making tax digital is all about is making sure that those errors are ironed out. So current schemes with, say, cash books, Excel spreadsheets, really easy to miss a big expense or a big invoice, and then say queries from HMRC can arise, and or say, just on a lower level basis, it just can mean that big clients are paying more tax than they need to. And again, just making tax digital, it is coming. It's been postponed, but yeah, 2020 onwards, all businesses are going to be expected to update HMRC quarterly using digital software. So although things are fine for now, it's coming. It makes sense to get things in place now while we can. So solutions, there's a lot of solutions that have jumped into the market now. We're looking at making tax digital and the software built around that. Obviously for in-house, we've used Sage for a while. We've used their Sage 1, their online product. Again, for our cloud start, we use that. It made sense for us, but yeah, there's plenty of other solutions out there, so Free Agent, QuickBooks Online, Cashflow, and obviously Xero are today. So why have we gone with Xero? So like I said, we started with Sage 1. It made sense for us to sort of follow that from their desktop product. We've this year moved across to Xero for a lot of reasons. Xero is the market leader in cloud-based accounting software. They have been since 2008. Sorry. The big time-saving feature is the direct bank feed. So bank transactions each day are pushed across direct to the software. We can then set up bank rules, so the software knows exactly what to do with everything. It just makes it really easy. So those jobs are it's a real 5-minute job now, rather than a Saturday afternoon job. The other big advantage is this whole ecosystem that's built around it. So, it's there's apps and there's just a whole range of things. So payment services, HR services, rather than the accountancy software being on its own. It's really part of this massive ecosystem where your whole business can be run just through a piece of accounting software. So we've got clients out there who are construction businesses. There's apps for sort of managing HR, the on-site management. We've got transport companies where there's apps where they can log the driver's time, get that invoice straight through Xero, just on an app on the driver's phone. So yeah, it just makes things really easy for businesses. So yeah, so as I said, we've got a couple of speakers from Xero today, which is really good of them to help out. We've got Leigh, who will be taking the sort of demo, leading that, and also Joe on hand just to answer any questions as well. So I shall shortly, all being well, hand across to them. So I'll just hand across.
Hi, good afternoon everybody. My name is Leigh. I've been with Xero for about 5.5 years, and I'm just going to take you through a quick run through of the Xero product. Please let me know through the questions or comments if there's any problems with the audio, and hopefully I'll try and adjust. Please fire any questions across that you've got as well. We'll do our best to answer them as we're working through. So hopefully you should be able to see a screenshot there of the main version of Xero, and you'll probably know if you're using accounting software or if you're using spreadsheets that accounting software isn't supposed to look like this. It's not supposed to look clean and nice and easy to use, but that's what we've done, and the reason for that is it's a task that you've got to do as a business owner, and so it makes sense for us to make that as simple and as easy and as pleasant as we can possibly make it. So we spend a lot of time on design and usability with Xero, so that it's as pleasant to use as it possibly can be. This isn't designed to be a training session by any stretch of the imagination. We're just going to touch on a couple of key features that we tend to see small businesses use most often, and often have a bit of a pain or a few problems around them, and just show you how we deal with those as elegantly as we can in Xero. So the first thing you'll notice whenever you log into the product is the main dashboard, and so this is designed to be a one-stop snapshot of where the business is, ideally in real time, because we can integrate tools like bank feeds, so we can automatically bring this information across very quickly. We can be looking at real-time and up-to-date information. So what we've got here, we'll come back to bank accounts in a minute, but you can see from the dashboard we've got a bit of a summary as to what the balances have been over time. We can see what's going on in the bank and what we've got in there. We can look at an accounts watch list, so if there are certain areas of the business that you're particularly keen on keeping a close eye on. For example, in the case of this business, advertising and marketing is a pretty hot area. We can make sure that that's front and present as soon as we log into the product, so we can keep a close eye on those sorts of expenses. Coming down, we try and keep terminology out of Xero or accounting jargon out as far as we possibly can. So we use simple terms: invoices owed to you, bills you need to pay. We're determined to build the product so that people could use it whether they got any financial training or not. It should be fairly easy to use, as I mentioned. So invoices owed to you and bills you need to pay are the terms that we use. But we can do some nice things from the dashboard here. We can see what invoices are owed to us that we're expecting to receive this week, what we're expecting to receive in the future. and actually what's already overdue. And we can click into those areas and get some more information. That's something we'll come back to in a couple of seconds. Just scrolling down, bills you need to pay, so the same, but for amounts that you need to pay out to your suppliers. And at the bottom, we've got expense claims. So if you've got people in your business, or maybe you yourselves, that incur out-of-pocket expenses, so you've got to get out a personal debit card or pay with your own cash for a parking ticket or fuel or whatever it might be, you can record those out-of-pocket expenses either in the main app here, or you can use our free mobile app on iOS and Android to capture your receipts, take photographs of them, and then get that captured in your accounting software. Just coming up to the top, we can see a bit of a summary of what we've spent and what we've received over the last couple of months, so we can get an eye on cash flow, and then back up again clockwise to the bank account. One thing to point out, of course, is that we're running in a browser here, so there's nothing for you to download or install or manage or upgrade or any of that on your own computer. You simply log into Xero.com from any mobile device and you'll be able to access this information from wherever you are. And really key here is that Adam and the team will be able to do exactly the same. So they're in a much better position to help you and coach you through your business rather than simply looking back over a VAT period or a year-end period. They can be right there with you in the passenger seat, as it were, in your journey as a small business, and are they're in a much better place to offer really high quality advice and some direction in the business. So on to a couple of the key features. So we know that one of the most common things that small business owners tend to do in Xero is to come and create a quick sales invoice, and there's a couple of different ways that we can do that. We can either click through into the sales area just here, we can click the plus icon at the top and create a new invoice, or we can just hit new sales invoice from the dashboard. That's what I'm going to do. It's the quickest way to do it. So that's what we'll hit. ABC Chairs is a new contact. We've got a couple of shortcuts in Xero, so we can tab through and get today's date, or we can do things like push relative terms, so we can say plus 14, and that will give us 2 weeks terms on the invoice. The invoice number increases sequentially, so next invoice we'll raise will be number 44, and the reference field is optional. If we want to, we can attach documents to the invoice, so if we need to send a signed timesheet or a signed order note, or any other documents out to our customer to support the invoice, we can absolutely do that. Or alternatively, we can store documents in Xero and just keep them as an internal reference. We don't have to send them to the customer. We can just have them attached to this transaction in Xero, and we can look at them in future if we need to. Branding, we can have different branding templates set up in Xero. So if you want to display your invoices in different ways, it might be that you've got different types of customers or different types of products or different services, and you want the invoice to look different for those, you can set up a branding theme ahead of time and pick from the list just there. If you need to invoice in different currencies, we can support that as well. I'm just going to go ahead and do this one in GBP. So we can free type into the boxes and just create whatever we want as an invoice. Or, much quicker, we can look down the list of pre-populated inventory items. So I've gone ahead and set these up initially when I started using Xero, and I've got a thing that I tend to sell or a service that I offer most of the time. This could have been my support thing. So if I click the item, that's going to pull through all of the details for this particular type of service that I offer, and that just saves the need for us to have to sit and write this out every time. Of course, if we want to adjust it, we can, but it gives us a really nice starting point rather than have to write the invoice from scratch every time. And as I said, we've got a free mobile app on iOS and Android, and while it's fine on a laptop, I can sit and write out text like this on here. It's not a problem. I've got a keyboard. If I'm trying to invoice from my iPhone, I'm not really going to want to sit and type that out on a tiny keypad. So inventory items super useful for making that quick. With Xero, we can allow you to use multiple users and invite as many people into your organisation as is necessary for no extra charge. We don't charge per user, you just pay once for the subscription, and that's that. You pay a monthly fee, and you can invite different users in. Now, you can give them different access rights if you want to. So if you've got people in the business that you're happy to create draft invoices for you, but not necessarily want them to send them out to the customers, then there's a user role that you can set up so they can come and create that and then leave you to approve it later on. As it is, we'll hit approve and then move on and get this invoice out to our customer. So I've hit approve. Come through. Here we can start adding addresses and details. As I mentioned, it's a new client, so we don't have any contact information at the minute. We can choose to add that from there if we want to. We can choose to print a PDF, so print that out, put it in the post if you really want to, but my recommendation would always be to try and email the invoice wherever you can. So we'll hit email. We're going to send it to an email address, which is going to be mine. Choose the email template that we want to send. Now you can have 10 of these with different text in depending on the context or what you want to say to your customer. I'm going to choose to include PDFs and any files that I wanted to send, and I'm going to send that off to my customer, and that will go through via email and arrive with them in a couple of minutes. And you'll note at the bottom we've got the history and notes here, and it's a really strong concept in accounting called an audit trail, and that means that every piece of information that gets put into the system should be logged, and the person that's put it in there should be accountable for it. So if there are any questions or problems later on, we can go back to that person and ask them what they've posted. And of course we do that in Xero, because we've got unlimited users, we know exactly who's posted that. So I have posted this transaction on this time and date, and if we need to make any corrections or come and speak about that, then we know where to go. Just going to load up my email, see if this invoice has arrived. Not quite yet. I'm sat in the corner of the office without much Wi-Fi, so I'll have to wait for a couple of minutes for that invoice to come through. We'll pop back to it in a second. The process for creating purchase invoices is largely the same as sales invoices. So if we come down to the bottom just here, we click on new bill, you'll see the interface is largely identical. So I'm not going to go through and create a purchase invoice, although that's a fairly common task. What I will do is just point out that of course you can still attach documents and invoices to these transactions as well, which becomes really useful. So if you have a filing cabinet or some lever arch files with all your purchase invoices in, and you look to get rid of that and move towards a more paperless style of office, you can do that by capturing those documents and attaching them to the things that you post into Xero, and then you've got them there for reference forevermore. Let me just try my email again. There we go, fantastic. The invoice has arrived. So you'll see it comes across as a plain text invoice. And the reason for that is that we want it to work well on smart devices, so tablets and smartphones. We don't want an excuse from the customer that they couldn't read the invoice or the message, and therefore they haven't paid. So you'll see we've got the PDF attached at the bottom, and we've got an invoice link that we can click into. So the end customer clicks the link, and they'll come across the live online version of your invoice. If we've made any changes to this in the last couple of seconds, of course they'll be updated and reflected on here. But there's a couple of interesting things your customers can do from this screen. You don't need to be a Xero user to look at this, you just need to click the link that you send them. So they can save a PDF version of the invoice, or they can download it to CSV if they want to. If they're a Xero user themselves, they can click the Xero button and that will save it into their version of Xero so they can process it a bit quicker. If they've got any questions or comments, they can leave them for you here. Or if they want to look at any other invoices they owe to you, they can look at the outstanding bill section just at the top. Most importantly though, and probably the first thing that you noticed, was the Pay Now option just there. So if you're using PayPal or Go Cardless or some of the other payment functions or apps that we integrate with, you can have your clients make an instant online payment to you with debit or credit card and pay your invoice instantly. And we've seen a nice decline in the debtor days, or the average amount of time it takes our customers to get paid once they've started using Xero and online invoices. The other really nice thing about online invoices is if we go back now to that invoice that I created a second ago. There it is. And if we look at the history and notes, we'll also see that the invoice is being viewed online. So it's great that we've got the function there for people to make instant payment. Unfortunately, not everybody's going to take that opportunity, and it may well be that we need to come and chase the invoice later, but at least we know that the invoice has been looked at. And again, I mentioned the audit trail earlier on, we can see the time and day that that's being viewed. So if we get that age-old excuse, I haven't seen the invoice, well, we sort of know that that's nonsense. Also in the sales area, we can see other invoices that we're owed money for. So we can look at the graph here and see when we're expecting to get paid, who owes us what. We can look at a list of our top debtors and see who owes us the most money. Or we can look at that and express it in terms of a pie chart. So we can see of all the money that we're owed, who are we most exposed to, and in this case it's Ridgeway University. We go through into an overdue invoice. any of these invoices, we can click straight through into it. We can choose to email another copy of the invoice out, and this time maybe we say, look, we want the overdue invoice template to go, and then hit send. So super easy to send out copy invoices. We can click through into the contact, go and get the contact information, give them a ring and chase our money up if we need to. So it makes it really, really easy. And remember, of course, this works as a cloud product on any device, so whether you're on a phone or an iPad or a laptop or your desktop computer, you can get to this information wherever you are, and that becomes super useful when we've got a little bit of downtime. We can go and check who owes us some money, send them some copy invoices, maybe give them a call and just make sure that cash is still flowing into the business. Back to the dashboard. So another common task that business owners need to do is to reconcile their bank account and capture all of the transactions that have been processed through the bank and get them into their accounting system. And as we mentioned earlier on, a lot of the time people will sit down with spreadsheets and copy that information out onto a list. And as Adam mentioned, there's a lot of pitfalls with that. You could miss lines off, you can transpose figures, which means you just jumble two figures around. So rather than writing 196, you write 169, which is a incredibly easy thing to do. Believe me, I've spent years and years processing bank statements onto Excel, so I should know. And there's also the risk of missing lines as well. And so our view is that if this information already exists in electronic format with a bank, it makes sense to import it rather than to get you as a busy business owner or maybe Adam or one of the team to sit down and write it out. It's just not a great use of time in 2017. And so either we can download an electronic bank statement file and upload that into Xero, and so we bring across all of that information, or we can set up an automated bank feed, which is where we link Xero to your bank account and have that information come across on a daily basis. Whichever method we use, when we come in to reconcile the bank account, again, we try and make this as easy and as straightforward and as pleasant as we possibly can. And I think we've done a really good job here, and what we've essentially turned BankRec into is a dare I say, a sort of fun matching game. And let me explain what I mean by that. On the left-hand side, we've got all of the bank statement lines that have been imported or have come across from the bank account. So this side should mirror your bank statement. On the right-hand side, we've got how we're going to deal with the transaction and how we're going to process it. And what Xero will start to do is make intelligent suggestions about what these things are based on things that we already know. And the eagle-eyed among you will have spotted that a minute ago we saw that Ridgeway University owes us $618,750. And we've received a payment for that. We've received the bank receipt a couple of days ago. And what Xero's done is kind of match that to the invoice. It said, look, we've received this money from this person. We know that they owe us some money. We think this invoice matches to this bank receipt. So all we need to do to capture that transaction, to mark the sales invoice as being paid and do all the reconciliations that we need to do is click OK. Super simple, one click, and Xero's gone away and done the rest for us. Works the same on purchase invoices. So if we owe somebody and then we subsequently pay it, Xero will do a good job most of the time of matching it up and allow us to click OK and move on. Where we haven't paid an exact amount or where Xero can't quite match it for whatever reason, maybe it's an old invoice, we've got a couple of options. Firstly, we can use the Discuss tab. This means you can leave a note, leave a couple of sentences, let Adam and the team know what's going on. Maybe in this example, look, this is for an old invoice, I'm not really sure what to do with it, can you help? And they can pick that note up on their side and maybe leave you a note back, maybe come and do it for you, possibly give you a ring and give you some assistance. Where we're paying multiple invoices, so we say Smart Agency here, we've paid $4.5 grand. We're going to search for Smart just there and find the two invoices that we owe. Tick them off and then click Reconcile. Again, super simple, and it allows us to move on. Xero will also start to memorize how we deal with transactions. So for example, where we've got a bank fee, in the past we've coded it to the bank fees code in our accounts, and Xero will memorize that and offer it again next time it sees a similar transaction. So again, all we click is OK, and then we move on. Finally, Xero can be taught how to deal with transactions, and so we can set up some criteria and say, look, whenever a transaction comes through the accounts that contains the term 711, I want you to deal with it in this way. And then of course every time it comes in, Xero knows what to do, and all we have to do is click OK and then move on. And so what we're trying to do there is make BankRec as simple as we possibly can. We can leverage the automation of bank feeds, and we can make it super simple for you to come in. Ideally, once a week, a couple of times a month, click OK on a handful of lines, and then you know your accounts are up to date. Adam and the team can see real-time information about what's going on, and then they're in a much better position to advise and assist your business as well. So the next step then is great. It's great that we can automate the obligation that you've got anyway to get this information here. We can strip away a lot of the time, so you can get those Saturdays back and do something more productive with it. That's great. But the next question is, well, what can we do with that then? If we've got the information in here, how can we put that to work for you? And there's a couple of ways that we can do that, primarily through reports. So if we go into the reports tab, click on profit and loss, for example. Most of you should be familiar with the P&L. So I'll choose this report to walk you through. So what we'll see on here is we've got fairly standard layout of the profit and loss. So our income at the top and our expenses in the bottom part of the report. But what's nice about this report is everything on here is clickable. So if we want to drill down, so we mentioned earlier on that, say, advertising and marketing is an interesting area for this business. Maybe they've overspent on it in the past. Now we've got a big chunk going out in October and not a huge amount before. So what we can do is just click on advertising and marketing, and then we'll get a breakdown of what's gone through this account in each month. If we click through into October or click on the amount, then we can go and see what makes that amount up. From there, we can click through into a particular invoice. And again, as I mentioned earlier on, we've got great accountability in Xero, so we can see, look, who's paid the invoice, who's entered it, who approved it, and if we've got an issue with this amount, we can go back and speak to those people. Also remember that we can attach documents as well, so if we need to see a copy of that invoice, it's right there at the click of a mouse. Some of the nice things that we can do in reports. So any of the reports that we create, so I'll pop back into the P&L. We can export them. So we can pull them out into Excel, into PDF, or into a Google Doc if you're using Google's productivity tools. And then you can share and collaborate with them in there. Also, what we can do is start to add notes in here. So if you want to leave some notes for Adam and the team, so maybe here, look, see that sales has gone up. We can add a note, what due to my tax bill. So if we've received more or sold more than we're expected to do, we can then ask the team about some questions and then follow that up with a call and use Xero as a collaborative tool. Next, there are some other reports in here that you may find fairly useful. I'm not going to go through them all because there are about 40, but one of my favorites is the business performance dashboard. And so this will give you a series of KPIs and there is a brief explanation if you click into each of these what they mean. But I thoroughly recommend that you have a chat with Adam and understand which of the KPIs are most relevant to your business so that you can start to track them and keep an eye on them. So for example, most businesses will keep an eye on gross profit percentage. So we're going to star that. We'll click through into gross profit and we can see the calculations that have been made across here. And so any trends or deviations in this amount is something worth knowing about because that will have an impact on your business. Going back to business performance, let's say, for example, gross profit is something we're interested in, net profit on net sales, and let's go current ratio as well. When we start them, if we come back to the dashboard, we'll see that these graphs are then present on the front screen as well. So again, every time we log in, we can keep a close eye on the key metrics that are really telling us about the health of our business. So, kind of running up to time there. Those are a few of the key features of Xero. There's lots and lots and lots under the hood. Many things I haven't quite got the time to get into here, but you're in great hands with Adam and the team. They're all certified advisors over there. So if you have any more questions about the product, please feel free to pop some questions across now, or if not, have a word with Adam and the team and they'll be able to guide you on how Xero might be a great fit for your business. With that, I'll hand back over to Adam and we'll pick up on any Q&A.
Thanks, Leigh. Yes, I hope that was a really useful demo for everybody. So we're really pleased with how it works. So if anyone's got any questions, if they want to pop them across, and myself or Leigh or Joe can help out with them. Just give that a couple of minutes.
Okay. So the first question from Steve. Thanks, Steve. How does Xero pick up payments from clients who pay by bank transfer? That's a really great question. So what we'll see is that amount come into the bank account as a bank receipt, and Xero should pick that up and treat it in just the way that we saw a second ago with the bank reconciliation. So it'll look at who sent the amount, it will look at what the amount is and try and link that up to a sales invoice where appropriate. Maria sent a few questions via email. Did we get them? I haven't got them this side. I'm not sure if Adam might have them. If you could pop a note across and let us know who you sent them to, that would be great, please.
Yep, thank you. Receipt Bank. So what is Receipt Bank? That's an app that works really well with Xero. Essentially, it's an app that captures all purchase invoices, so it can be used down as a smartphone app. Take a photo of the receipt and then hit the process button, and that will just get processed really nicely across to Xero, appearing in the bills paid. Yeah, again, just cutting out that need for paperwork. Just got that. I sent them all to Adam, so yeah, so we're not checking emails at the minute, but I'll get back to you on that once we've had a chance to look through them. Cool. So I think that's pretty much all the questions answered. Obviously, any more questions, all the usual contact details, so the phone, email, WhatsApp, or pop in and arrange an appointment to go through things. It's been really useful. So yeah, really thanks to Joe and to Leigh for helping out today. Again, just a little bit about us, what we do, how we try to help. But yeah, so any questions, so give us a call, and hopefully we'll speak to you all soon. Again, just thanks to Leigh and Joe again.
Adam, I think just before you duck off, it looks like there's a couple of questions that have just come in below from Maria and Steve, so I'll just hand back them to you guys to answer them.
Yeah, so again, are we able to search for check number that's been paid to us by a customer? Yeah, so again, what we'll just go into that customer's account. So if you know that that's a check that's been paid by that customer, we have to just go into that customer and just tie that up to hopefully find that in their account. Again, that will just pop through the bank fees as normal. Again, that'll be how it's allocated across. And how is it migrate to Xero? So again, it depends what tools we're on at the minute. So things like Sage, QuickBooks Online, really straightforward. There's tools out there called Move My Books, which will just move all the information across. The cost of that is covered by Xero as well, which is really good. Otherwise, manual records, again, fairly easy to set up. Again, we've found that the most difficult one is Sage 1 to move across. There's very little that Sage gives out, but even in that case, we've managed to move it okay, no problem. So yes, the migration shouldn't really be an issue or a concern. Yes, it's easy to deal with. What about customers who've got need a paper invoice? Again, exactly the same as on the sales screen we went across. So we'll just download that PDF that can be printed out and dropped in the post. Yeah, we've got a couple of other questions, but I think they were ones we'll just reply to Maria. We'll just reply to them separately. I'll give you a call, or I'll drop you an email on those. So yeah, I think with that, yeah, any more questions, we'll wrap up. And yeah, thank you everyone for turning up again today. Hope it's been useful. And there's just a short poll questionnaire afterwards. If you wouldn't mind just filling that in, it should only take a few seconds. But yeah, that's great, thank you. And any questions, drop us a call. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.